Marketer of the Day, episode 632, Diving Deep Within. Stop being a coach resistor. Use the Socratic method. Discover your aspirational self and become coachable with Melinda Kelly.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Melinda Kelly, and I have an honest and maybe even a little bit of a painful question to ask you, and that's, are you a coach resistor? Are you afraid to invest money back into your business? Are you unsure about giving up control to someone else? Do you think that you know everything, or do you think you know better? Well, that might get you by for a little while until that harsh reality hits where the bills are due, where the traffic's not where what should be, where the money or the customers are lacking. And that's why you need to pay very close attention today when we're chatting with Melinda Kelly, who is the author of Finding Your Coach, Diving Deep Within. And she's going to tell us all about how we can be coachable and how we can go within and basically get the life and the business of our dreams by getting out of our own way and actually listening and going through that maybe brief period of painful recognition until we get out from the other end and achieve all kinds of new things that we never would have dreamed we could accomplish. So, Melinda, how's it going today? So am I, and I think that today's conversation, for me personally, it's a little rough because I can definitely relate to this idea of thinking we know everything, thinking we're going to do everything, thinking we're so smart. But then when there's that roller coaster income, when the money kind of goes up, we feel smart. When the money goes down, it's all that the weight is on us. And over the years, I've had those realizations where I was like, okay, I can't figure out X. I need to figure out a coach for that. But I've also had all these hangups that I think we all have where I'm like, I don't know if I should spend the money on this. I don't know if this person is taking me in the right direction. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on just this whole coaching aspect in general?
Well, I think each and every question you raise is an excellent one because we're raised to be very resourceful people. And part of that is when we're little kids, we ask a million questions and we get shushed. And then we get into school and then there's sort of that embarrassment, and I'll get to you later. And then as we go through life, questions are really frowned upon. In high school, you would be dumb. In your first job, well, do you really know what you're doing? And so we start looking for answers on our own. And a lot of the time we can find them. But it's hard to recognize there's some things there's no real handbook for. And we're sort of reticent to sit there and say that we have failed. But I often think the greatest success is you're actually being able to say, I need help. Who can I go to get some help from? And we used to talk about mentors or counselors or a million different words. The word now everyone uses is a coach, from a life coach to a business coach to a life, I was going to say sports coach. We wouldn't think twice about someone helping us with a tennis or a golf swing, but something as personal and important as our business or our life, we sort of get funny.
Yeah, we do. And what you mentioned right there about not being afraid to ask for help, I think that's so important. And I keep thinking that I have a handle on that sort of thing. And then a few years pass and I get a little older and I realize that it's completely okay to ask, is it okay if you take a look at this? Am I doing this right? Am I understanding what you're saying? Or when you use this term or when you talk about this, are we on the same page? I've realized that there's nothing wrong with slowing down a little bit and saying, even though I think I get it, is it okay if we both are talking about the same thing?
Well, and it used to be just very normal that you had someone that you consulted with, and it might be a family member, it might be a friend of the family who was successful in business or some area you were, and yet we've sort of taken on this, I can do it my own. And Yeah, we can, but we could be a lot happier and have life be a little easier and possibly have life be a little more financially successful if we weren't slogging through it all the time. I think one of the most important questions we're starting to ask ourselves is, what is the quality of my life?
Yeah. And so along those lines, do you have any thoughts on going to that coach or that mentor or that family member and asking for advice or asking for help and knowing when you're being a pushover or knowing when you're following bad advice? Have you ever come across things like that, or do you have any advice for the rest of us out there?
Well, I like to think everyone gives you the best advice, but of course, any advice someone who knows you personally gives you is flavored with their perceptions of you. And that's why going to someone who doesn't know you, who hasn't known you your entire life and remembers the time that you got your car booted is a good thing to do, because when we deal with an independent third party, there's no history, and they listen to our hopes and our dreams, and they help us figure out where we're going in our future. And knowing that knowing who we are allows us to work with that independent person. And when we deal with someone we know very well, we bring all sorts of roles into it as well. We may not question them the way we would question a stranger. They may say something and it was great 10 years ago, but in 10 years, technology has taken off or the business model has changed. There are so many things that change dramatically that what worked then doesn't work now. We need someone who's grounded in today's realities. That's why I think having the wisdom to hire outside makes sense no matter who you are.
And an interesting insight I heard from you just now was that there's the issue of, well, do we ask for advice from a close friend who knows us, or do we ask for advice from a stranger? And what I'm hearing from you is that you get the best advice from that independent third party who doesn't know your decades of backstory, but at the same time, you also need to know yourself to maybe fill in the gaps that they might not know. Is that on the right track?
That's exactly on the right track. I always say, ask people who they would recommend, see how you fit with them, if your values are the same, if you resonate with one another. But it's more than just seeing if you like one another, it's knowing who you are. And that's part of why I say diving deep within. We all have traits and tendencies we don't realize we do on a daily basis that accidentally sabotage us. And you were saying about being so smart, and something I've said to a lot of people, and they go, "Oh, yeah, that resonates." We've all been in a meeting and they're talking, and well, I know that. And they keep talking, and I know that. And they keep talking, and I know that. And we are so busy being full of what we know that at some point the presenter will drop a pearl of wisdom and we miss it because we're so busy knowing everything that we've checked out. And I like to say, we are so smart, we're stupid. We are so full of knowing everything that we don't realize there are still a few things we don't know. And almost everyone I've said this to has said, "Oh, yeah, I've done that at least once."
Yeah, I think we all have. And I think that even if we know that thing, maybe we haven't applied it, or maybe we forgot about it, or maybe we did it once and it so-called didn't work. And I think that issue right there of saying, well, I've heard of that, so I don't need to listen. I wasn't really aware of that until I saw that happening with a lot of other people, where I'd say, well, here are the basics of making your website, making your funnel. And I'd say, even though you might have heard of some of this, let me give you the whole picture. And they say, well, I've heard of that, skip. I've heard of that, skip. And I'm thinking, well, I can't even get the information that I want to get to, because you're filtering it all out as if the only thing that you'll listen to is something new. Maybe you keep coming across the same thing again and again and you're not doing it, maybe that's a sign, right? If this keeps coming onto your plate, maybe it's something you should pay attention to and not keep on putting more energy into ignoring. So I can really relate to that. And so this has me curious about your own personal struggles with being a coach resistor. So I imagine that you're human like the rest of us, right? You've fallen into, at some point or another, these self-sabotage traps. So what has your process been like? And was there any sort of an aha moment or a changing point when suddenly you realize I've got to change?
Well, I am very human, I'm happy to say. And there's a quote I've always loved is your friends admire you for your qualities, but they love you for your flaws. And I'm very lovable. When years ago, I decided I was going to take the brave adventure and write and signed up with a writing coach who was recommended. And I went to the first meeting, did the assignment, came back, presented it, and was savaged. So I took all the notes, thought, okay, I'm learning, redid the assignment, brought it back, and was savaged. Took the notes, did it again, brought it back, and I was savaged again. So badly that people came up at the midpoint and said, I don't know, we liked it. And it really chilled me. And it scared me from working with anyone again. And I didn't realize how much it chilled me. And as I hit a big combination of events colliding and had to ask myself some very serious questions, I'm fortunate that I had friends who recommended people. And I took, for me, the brave step of working with someone again. And it was a good fit. The recommendation was true. The person, we resonated, and the way they approached things fit me as well. That got me a little bit braver to work with someone else, a recommendation to a recommendation, who again was in the same school of thoughts. And I started to grow a little. And a friend recommended someone else because you do start to find yourself being a little gypsy. Because if this person was good and they've taken you this far, and this person is good and they've taken you further, why wouldn't you want to continue this arc? I went to the next person who was also excellent in the first arena I worked with her. But she presented another program, and I was so excited, I signed up for it. And what I realized about halfway through is I hadn't really paid attention. I was so in over my head because I wasn't ready for what she was presenting. I had shown up in my aspirational self where I thought I could be and where I wanted to go. But it was like having a castle of dreams in the sky. I had no stairs to get there. And it took me a while to realize it wasn't her. It was me not being ready. And that's why I say I think we've all shown up thinking we could do it or thinking we were ready instead of recognizing we weren't there yet. And that was a hard thing to swallow because we don't like it when it's us. We always want it to be them. And I have found that as I've looked more and more into myself and what have I done, it's helped me have a stronger, healthier relationship with anyone I've worked with.
Interesting. So I can relate quite a bit to that issue of being in over my head or I'm not ready. And then also being a little angry at myself too, because it seems to look so easy to everyone else, right? I mean, when you're a kid and you see all kinds of cars driving down the road, you're like, well, there's millions of cars out there. And then you get behind the wheel and you're like, I don't know any of this. I have to focus on 10 different things at once. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then it seems to be really, really frustrating. And so what I heard from when you're talking about your journey there is like you kind of had all these a lot of like kind of painful growth, and then you went from like person to person helping you out to getting to where you need to go. And I have a little bit of difficulty sometimes with the, I don't know if you'd call it the breakup or the parting ways, so to speak. Like sometimes I'll get help from a coach from something specific. So something that I worked on this last year was more speaking and more follow up. And then, I paid money, I met, did the time, I had some questions, I got some help with what I needed to do. And then I felt a little bit of maybe a cliffhanger or guilt of not continuing. I had so much to do from basically like what I was assigned and what I had to do. And I was like, okay, well, I only hired this person for this short period of time. I have things I have to go now and implement. And I kind of felt, I don't know, weird parting ways. Is that common, or is that something that you've experienced where you get to where you need to go and then that person has outlived their usefulness or you've outlived their usefulness, and then you kind of have a weird wondering if you're letting the other person or yourself down? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I would say that you might need to look at your relationship with authority figures, because sort of what you described is you just graduated high school and you're off to college and you're hoping you're ready. And we don't necessarily realize what our relationships are with these mentors, these coaches, if we don't look at what do we do with authority figures. Do we make everybody our mother or father? Do we give them our power? Do we give them all the knowledge instead of realizing this is in many ways an equal relationship, that I'm trading with you my resources for your knowledge, that we are both benefiting from this experience. I always hope that everything should be mutually advantageous. And I've been very fortunate that, except for the one person, everyone I've worked with, there is still an ongoing relationship. And I don't know if that is me or if that is the nature of how they've approached what they do. But even with the person I was in over my head, I value how she approaches things and what she does. And so I am still on her mailing list. I do like she will have things that I still find of value. So I'm not sure if I'm the exception, but I also have to say, I really have had to, as I looked at what do I do and dig deep into what are the things I'm doing in each of these relationships. Because if you're in a room and everybody's getting benefit, but you're not, as much as I want it to be the person at the front of the room, it might be me sitting in my chair. And as I've had to live with these truths I've discovered, it's made me reassess each coaching relationship and to look at what they have legitimately offered and legitimately given, and what was my issue or my problem that didn't allow it in.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. And it also could be there are people that literally are, here's my course, this is what I do, good luck. And if you need a refresher or additional, come back and we'll talk. So I suppose it really does depend on the dynamic of how it's set up to begin with.
That's good. Yeah, that maybe if there's some sort of friction there, some sort of a conflict, maybe that equal relationship, that mutual trade is a little off balance, or maybe one person, one side of that transaction isn't on the same page, right? Misunderstands what the setup is, and so some people might want more of the all inclusive hand holding. Others are just like, well, like you said, here's the training. If you want more, then you can tack that on. So that's really good, and that I think that helps take some of the second guessing, the emotion out of it, and looking at it as a mutual trade. Like we agreed, you give this, I get that. And so that way you don't fall into that trap of just trying to impress the other person or trying to appear smart to the other person, because yeah, when you look at it like you're paying them money, they're giving you time, they're getting your expertise for a result, then stop trying to one up or impress. So that's really helpful for me there. And so now I'm curious about, you mentioned a few times about you and your clients. So I'm curious about some kind of a fun story about one of your clients with maybe like a before and after aspect where they were struggling with some sort of issue. They came to you, you worked your magic, and things were super great in the end. So does anything like that come to mind?
Um, well, I was going to say I sort of like when I approach any of this, it's through the Socratic method. I like asking questions. I love questions because so often we know our answers. We just need someone to help direct us through this. And I've had one client who recently retired and was making all sorts of crazy plans. And I finally had to point out she was planning a move based upon a child that hadn't been born to her daughter who hadn't gotten married on the belief that they might eventually move to this city. She thought about that, said, okay, and then realized she was putting not only the cart before the horse, she was putting everything before the horse. Well, the amusing irony is everybody ended up in the city she was going to, wanted to go to, now is there. And actually was working with her last night, and she's now looking at, with all this free time in a new city, what to do. And helped her go through where's the next place? Where does she put her talents to fulfill herself and to find funding? And it was a very lovely experience because it's working together to find the best use of time and talents. So that's a very nebulous answer, but she's looking into teaching at an adult college, and we put together a course program for her. And she's quite excited about some possibilities ahead.
Cool. So you mentioned that you are all about the Socratic method and asking questions and asking the right questions. So with this person, when she was like, well, there's all these moving parts, right? There's the unborn baby, there's the marriage that might happen, everyone will be in the city, I'll do the teaching. How did you make sense, or how did you simplify, or what sorts of questions did you ask this person to get to the goal?
What was their original thought behind it? Because it always comes from a good thought, but is it a good crazy thought? Is it a good practical thought? Is it a plan? Is it a pipe dream? I'm and the funny thing is this one was all of those. She was right. She was just so far ahead of the curve. And and part of it, which I give such credit to the coaching field, is you listen to hopes, to dreams, to what we say we want to do, to what we say we aren't going to do, and ask us to make everything work. But we can't give you a map. You have to create your own map, or else it isn't your life.
Right. But that can be a little bit scary, right? When you're creating your own map and you're making these decisions and you're saying, well, I will not do this, but I will do that. I won't live in this city, but I will live in that city. How do we know we're doing the right thing? How do we know we're not at the beginning of a really bad path we're going down?
Oh, you know what? It's like anything in life. No baby would ever be born if we, had to wait for guarantees. No one would ever get married if we had to, it was an absolute. Life is this beautiful adventure that every so often we are giddy with, and every so often we've stubbed our toes. I wish there was an answer. My mother was so cute. She used to say she'd love to wrap us in, a protective bubble and send us out into the world. And that's everyone's hope for the people they love. but it's just not a realistic way to live your life. Half of the fun is when you get lost on a road trip and discover the 1,000-mile ball of twine and laugh about it forever. A lot of the great moments of life are when we least expect them.
Right. I completely agree. I think back to like times when I would be, driving through the desert with nothing for 50 miles and low on gas. And in the moment, it's not fun. But looking back, you're like, well, that was kind of an adventure. That mixed things up a little bit.
Mm.
I've been telling myself a lot lately that I just need to do my best. And, doing my best involves that self reflection, that course correction, but also we're never like kind of going full circle back. We're never going to be perfect, right? We're never going to be the absolute smartest human being or most successful human being that was ever born, but that doesn't matter. What matters is finding our personal fulfillment and, as you said, having fun. So that's really helpful. And as we're beginning to wind down here, does anything come to mind as far as like in all your travels and all the people you've helped and problems you've seen? Is there a number one common mistake that you see so many of us making or something that we're missing out on that you think that we all need to hear to wake up?
I I would say there's a quote I've loved my entire life that it took me a long time to fully realize. And it's success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. And too often I feel that we're chasing somebody else's dream. I want everybody to have everything, but I want it to be your everything. And too often we go with what we think is the safe route or what's going to be the successful route or make money. And ask any attorney who's hit that midpoint and would love to do anything else because they no longer have a life, or someone who's no matter how hard they work, there are just not enough hours in the day. We chase after someone else's dream instead of knowing what are our values and our priorities. There are a lot of ways to be successful, but if you're not happy, do you really have full success? And so I guess my biggest wish for everyone is that you know yourself enough to know that which is going to fulfill you, that which is going to bring you your happiness, and that which will bring you your success, and probably in that order.
I love it. And I think that's very helpful, especially in this day and age where it's easy to fall into that trap of looking on Facebook, looking on Instagram, seeing how happy everyone else's life is. And their life might not be as happy as you think, or you getting to the goal, you getting everything that you ever wanted might not be the blessing that you think it is. And don't chase someone else's dream. Figure out what you want, figure out what makes you both successful and happy. And there might be bumps in the road, there might be total reversals, you might have a total bomb blow up in your face, so to speak, and that's no fun. But then you get up and you keep going, and you go on that journey, that process. And so Melinda can be found at melindajkelly.com, and I want to make sure that people know all about you and know what specific website or what specific book or any kind of resource you feel like throwing out here. So what do you have for us today?
Well, I my book is available at Amazon. It's Finding Your Coach, Diving Deep Within, available in paperback and in Kindle. And I'm putting the finishing touches on a aha quiz to help you sort of take a look at how do you process learning and how well do you sit in a long lecture.
Awesome. It's always fun to take a quiz and answer some questions and get that customized result instead of having to read through a lot of stuff, right? The quiz is more interactive, more fun.
Oh no, this is a no wrong answer quiz, so everybody passes.
Perfect. And then is there an easy way for people to get on your mailing list so that way they can get updates from what you're doing?
Well, thank you so very much. Yes, hello there at melindajkelly.com.
All right. So hello there at melindajkelly.com. And then melindajkelly.com is the website to go to find out all about what you need to know to find your coach, to find her books, to find out about her speaking and her podcast and everything that she has going on. So go there right now. That's melindajkelly.com. And thanks for stopping by, Melinda, for telling us about how we can discover ourselves and get what we want and not hold ourselves back, not be a coach resistor. I got a lot out of it. I hope that, I know that the listeners did as well. So thanks for taking the time and thanks for dispensing this wonderful knowledge.
Well, and thank you for such a lovely and fabulous time together.
Super great. Awesome. Did you leave us a quick review on iTunes yet? It's quick and easy. Just go to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, click the View in iTunes button, and we would be very grateful.